Welcome to the Rich in Purpose Childhood Trauma Summit today. Today we're dealing with Kimberly Weeks, and we're going to talk about how do we know if we're dealing with narcissists in our lives. Welcome, Kimberly.
Thank you so much, Jamie. I appreciate you having me on.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Kimberly, tell us a little bit about you, and then what caused or what got you into helping people, mainly focus in the coaching on how to deal with people who are dealing with narcissism.
Okay, a little bit about me. I am a child of God. I'm going to start there. And I became, because of some of my life experiences, a trauma recovery practitioner or trauma care practitioner. I support women specifically, but anyone who's experienced narcissistic abuse wherever it's found, whether it's in their childhoods, whether it's in intimate partner relationships, whether in churches or cults, or in systems, whether it's a workplace, organization, business, nonprofit, all of those different things. A little bit about me is this is near and dear to my heart because I believe it's my life purpose. And I discovered that through going through my own healing and recovery from childhood trauma, as well as being married to a person who I experienced, I would call it sociopath behavior that was narcissistic abuse, predatory patterns of behavior, coercive control, etc. I had 4 children, 4 boys, so I'm a mama, and raising boys as a woman and wanting them to be different than what they had witnessed in their childhoods required me to leave that relationship so that they did not believe that what they were seeing was the right way to treat a partner or a person in a relationship. So that's a little bit about me. And I'm very passionate about this because I have seen it in short order. I have been with clients who've been through therapy, trauma therapy, done a lot of different modalities. And, God has gifted me to be able to work with people and see extremely rapid transformation over a few years from everything they've dealt with from their childhood and how it's presenting in their adulthood. So that's a little bit about me and my story.
Well, great. Well, it looks like we're talking to the right person then today. But because I have to tell you, Kimberly, I'm very passionate about this as well because recently I I had a narcissist for a roommate, and she was the one that owned the place. And
Mm-hmm.
it took me about 6 months to realize that this lady was trying to destroy me, basically.
Yes.
And and I ended up, I wasn't really financially able to leave right away, so I was there for a year and a half,
Mm-hmm.
and it was really some of the worst times that I've ever had. And to say it bluntly, she was the meanest lady that I ever dealt with in my whole life, and I just couldn't believe it because she was so sweet when I first met her.
Yes, yes. And you said it rightly. You said meanest lady, that's the evil that's behind this behavior. But also it's meant, the experience is meant to destroy. It is
Right.
meant to damage. It is meant to devalue. It is meant to siphon all of what you have to offer in relationship and leave you with nothing. And that's why so many folks struggle for such a long time, because it is devastating in so many ways to every part of them. And that's just being honest about the reality of dealing with that kind of abuse. And not bypassing the actual impact and experience. Sometimes people go, well, you just need to change your mind about it and speak differently about it. And a part of healing is being honest and telling the truth and reckoning with the reality. And so that's what I walk people through. And it can be very painful to go through that grieving process.
Well, I think so, because especially and I want you to address this a little bit for high achieving adults, right? We tend to be attracted to that type of person sometimes, or
Sure.
they can actually, I think they actually spot us, and then they realize that we can be a supply for them. So
Mm-hmm.
tell us a little bit uh, why we're kind of attracted to them, and then sometimes, Kimberly, why it takes us so long to realize that we're dealing with someone and we should get away, but then we don't.
It's a really, really great question. It's like $1 million question. The reality is that narcissists have the ability to perceive weakness, vulnerability, and wounding in people. They can pick it up. It's almost like a spidey senses for them. Okay. They can literally walk into an environment and pick up who is going to be receptive to their charm and advances. And so they kind of hone in on that person. And in the process of honing in on that person, they start asking questions to assess what kind of person or supply of, attention, energy, and giftings you have. They start, kind of that small talk that is really kind of like when someone is casing a house to see if they can break in and steal some stuff. They case you. And when they ask those questions to discern what they can get out of the situation or what value you can bring into their lives, if they find A, that you have some vulnerability, and B, that you have some gifts and some things that you can offer to them, whether that's clout, whether that's money, whether that's sex, whether that's attention, then they start going into the abuse process, which begins with love bombing. Love bombing is like the person says all of the things you've ever wanted to hear. And if you've shared any vulnerability with them up front, they start honing in on sharing the solution to that vulnerability to you. They give you trips, they give you gifts, they give you attention, they give you praise, they give you all kinds of flattery, anything to get you to be endeared to them and disarmed. Endeared and disarmed. So once they gain your trust and they get you hooked into some kind of relationship, that could be a partnership, it could be a business contract, it could be you become their partner or they marry you, it could be that you move into their place and you're a tenant or something like that. Whatever it is that gets them to have close proximity to you, then they begin the next stage of the abuse cycle, which is devaluation. And so it's very disorienting because you go from being put on a pedestal and given lots of attention to rapidly being torn down, criticized, devalued, and set up for some kind of provocation where they can get you to react to whatever they're saying that is an accosting of your identity or your sense of self. Okay. So then after they go through a period of kind of playing around with you and devaluation and being able to come in and out, I call the devaluation phase kind of like a feeding frenzy. And when I say that, I mean this. You've ever seen animals when they pour the food in on farms and all the pigs or all the goats come and they start feeding? That is what a narcissist will do when they provoke you to react and you have a big reaction energetically, or you get dismayed or you get upset. They're feeding off of your reaction for what's called supply, which is just attention and energy from you. And so once they've done that round of devaluing you and being able to feed off of you, and eventually you start to be impacted by that mistreatment and the disorientation between how wonderful they treated you at the beginning, how sweet they were, like you said, to this other person that you're dealing with, where they switch up into a completely new personality. And they don't just switch all the way. They go back and forth between giving you attention and then devaluing you, giving you a love bomb, crumb, and then devaluing you. So you're disoriented. Your mind and your nervous system don't quite get what's going on. And therefore, you can't think logically and rationally. It's the prefrontal cortex, or the front part of your brain, that is the executive functioning part of your brain. So after they've had that fun with your emotions, then they go into the last phase, which is called the discarding phase. They get incredibly cruel. They will kick people out of homes. They will kick people out of family systems, fire people, start a smear campaign to try to force you out of a company or a business environment and destroy your reputation. And once that process is kind of in play, where they've kind of separated and started with somebody else. They'll do something called hoovering, just like the Hoover vacuum, where they will suck you back into the cycle and use you a little bit more if there's any more energy or any more giftings or any more clout they can get from you, and then dispel you again when they don't need you anymore. And most people stay in that cycle in some kind of way for quite a period of time. Now, you ask the question, why is it so hard for people to understand what's happening and how bad they are? And why do people kind of get, stuck going back and forth with that person? It's because your brain is being damaged through this whole process. Your thinking capacity is being damaged through this whole process. And typically, especially if it's an intimate partner, you've got emotions, or a family system. You've got emotions, you've got feelings, you've got some skin in the game for this relationship that you want to make it work out. They've made promises to you that you have become hooked on, the hope of. And so you're hoping against hope. We call it hopium, kind of like a drug. You're on that hopium, Jamie. We're hoping against hope that we can get back to that original person that treated us so kindly and so nicely. And if we can just perform and do all the right things and please them, that person will come back. And that's why it's so difficult for survivors of this experience to get away, stay away, and heal from it. Because typically, even if they discard you or you choose to leave, at some point they hoover you back in. And once that happens, it's kind of like AA, where you have to start all the way over, because you're back being hooked on the abuse cycle that they've had you in, and you have to start your recovery all over again.
Yeah. Well, the one thing that I think new people coming, because I never dealt with a narcissist before, is that you don't realize that the niceness is there. But then all of a sudden, like she would devalue me. And then I was like, and I would try to get to the point where I would try to prove to her that I wasn't the person that she was trying to tell me I was.
Yes.
And then, then that would get her angry. And then, the one thing you always realize, I think, Kimberly, is that they come back and they're the victim of what just happened.
Yes.
So explain to us, I guess, how that happens. And then how do we know a little bit ahead of time, I guess, that we're dealing with someone like that? Because I have to say that I had no idea.
Sure.
I would try to prove to myself that I was not this person that she was saying. It was really just baiting me so that she could just keep saying, no, you're not that person. No, you're not that person. No, you're not that person.
You raise a very good point, because a big part of this abuse process or cycle is the term gaslighting. And gaslighting is when someone will tell you that you did something that you didn't do, or say you didn't do something that you did do. Even with proof, even with receipts, even with screenshots and voicemails and video recordings and voice recordings, they will deny truth and reality. And it is incredibly disorienting to you, because your memory, again, your brain is under assault. It's under attack. And so what ends up happening, as you've stated, is you begin this process of trying to prove that what they're saying isn't true. And you try to bring data and information, or convince them or influence them. And all of that is a part of that feeding cycle, because they're getting a lot of attention from you during that, and a lot of your energy, and depleting you of your capacity to function through that whole process. And so gaslighting, it's actually after a movie. It's a movie, old-time movie in 1940s, where a husband would go around his house. He was trying to make his wife go crazy. And he would go around the house and move items in the house and say that she moved them, or, change the lighting in the house and say that nothing had changed. He would do these little things to disorient her and cause her to question her reality and her presence her identity, her understanding of what was happening in her world. And over time, it pushed her into having a nervous breakdown. And that's what happens, Jamie, when you are in these environments. I don't remember the second part of your question. There was a second part of your question.
I think that they always look at to being the victim
Yes. Uh-huh.
of any situation.
Yes. So what they have to do is invert. They want you to exchange the truth for a lie. So they're the person that instigated an argument or instigated a conflict or chaos, but they want to project what they did back on you so that you take responsibility for what is happening, and then you take responsibility for repairing and fixing it. All of that is the feeding process. And so they will lie, deceive, distort, manipulate, gaslight. They'll do all kinds of deception in order to not be responsible for the chaos that's caused, and to sit back. And for some narcissists who are also sadists meaning they get pleasure out of chaos, they will sit back and get pleasure and delight from watching you attempt to prove the lie that both of y'all know is a lie. But just the fact that you're going through the process of trying to get them to admit it, they will sit back like it's a total game to watch you go through that process to try to prove them wrong.
Well, for me, that was an aha moment when this lady was telling me that I didn't do something. And I'm like, I do it every day. How can you
Right.
tell me I don't do this every day and I do it every day? And it became an aha moment where I'm like, I think she's trying to pick a fight with me.
Yes.
Right? It's not the fact that I didn't do it. She knew I did it every day, but for some reason she just was trying to pick a fight with me. And the one thing that I want to, when you're doing research on the narcissist, they at any moment they can start a fight with you.
Yes.
And then all of a sudden now your nervous system and your brain, like when they come home, is this the day they're going to fight with me, or is this the day they're not going to fight with me and give me some respect? I guess, Kimberly, tell us how we can just deal with that, because that is the point where, unless you have a way to go, and at that point, I didn't have a way to go. I wish I would have had a way, but I didn't have a way. And
Sure.
and I would lock myself in my room, but for somehow she would bam, 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 and find a reason to pick a fight with me. So just go through that, and how do we deal with those types of things?
That's a really good question, and in my immediate reaction was, you don't deal with it. But I also understand, because I've been in that situation as a stay-at-home mom with 4 boys at home that I was taking care of and hadn't worked in 7 years. I couldn't just immediately leave the situation and have the capacity to take care of myself or them. So I would say the best way to go through the process is getting your support system in play. It's getting a team of people, whether it's people that you trust that are in your family, if you have people that you trust in your family, professionals like someone like myself, who are skilled with understanding this particular type of abuse, people in your church environment, all of that, or people who are just mental health professionals, licensed mental health professionals, who are, again, skilled, because everyone is not skilled to deal with narcissistic abuse, so that you can ground yourself in reality. Again, you've gone through a process where your brain has been under a kind of assault. It's been under some damaging, circumstances, and the wiring of your brain in terms of you feeling confident that you understand what's going on, and having that validated is the first place to go. Okay. And then when I go work with clients who come to me and they're trying to get out of those dynamics, whether it's with parents or whether it's with an intimate partner, or they need to leave a job, you start going through scheduling or setting up your exit plan. And you're very strategic about it. And you do not communicate to whatever party is involved that you're going through that process of getting ready to leave. Now, here's what's interesting. Just like I said, they can come in the room with their spidey senses and pick up the people who have vulnerability and weaknesses and wounds. They can also pick up when they're in relationship with you, when you have shifted, when you are no longer reacting, when you are no longer susceptible to this provoking an environment, whether they're picking fights with you. And they're picking fights because there is a level of torment on the inside of people who have this disorder, and they have to let it out on somebody. If they don't let it out on somebody, it's going to torment them. So what you're actually getting is a window into what's happening on the inside of them, their own inner chatter, inner critic, their own torment that they're unleashing so that they can kind of separate from it, and kind of your reaction gives them reprieve and some downtime from it being, reverberating on the inside of them. So, when someone comes to me and they're like, what do I do? How do I deal with this? I'm assessing with that person. If they have gotten to the end, you said you had your aha. If they've gotten to the end of trying to prove that they aren't the person that that person says that they are, if they have gotten to the end of trying to change the other person, or if they have given up hope yet that that other person can change, that is the place of transformation and where they can really start working on that exit plan. Because as long as they think or have hope that they can do something to change that other person's treatment of them, they're hooked into that abuse cycle, and they'll go back and forth, hoovering in and out over time.
Right. Well, like in my situation, it was a church person that I was referred to, that I needed a roommate and she needed a roommate.
Sure.
And so the thing was that talking about it, like I didn't want to say anything bad about her to other people in the church. So I ended up keeping it to myself. I didn't really share with anyone that I was going through this. I
Mhm.
guess, and from my understanding, I guess sometimes as well, Kimberly, is they get you in a situation where they do isolate you,
That's
so that
correct.
you don't, like I left that church and I went to another church, and so that really encouraged her, or got her into a situation where she could just keep it going.
Yes.
And
Yes.
how do you I guess you deal with that? Because there's, I just keep asking you, how do you deal with it? Because it was so traumatic for me. I
Yes.
mean, I've been gone for a couple of months now, but I'm still decompressing, right, over
Mhm.
over everything that happened to me in that year and a half.
Mhm. Mhm.
So that's why I want you to just kind of share with people just overcoming these types of things, because
Sure.
I'm learning from you now, because I'm kind of going through the same thing. So,
Mhm.
how do you don't let them isolate you, and you
Mhm.
move forward in your life?
Well, first thing I'll say is isolation is a part of the abuse cycle. They have to discern or figure out who are your support systems and turn those people against you or you against them. It's a part of the abuse cycle. So don't think that it's strange that that happened to you. When you get away from the situation and you have a little bit of time to kind of repair, um, understanding what you were in. I'm going to call that integration. You're integrating what you experience so that you can kind of put it in some kind of order in your mind. And that can take a while, Jamie, depending on how long you were in the situation. What you do is you have to start going into what happened in the situation. Where did you first interact in your life with those kind of dynamics that it was familiar to you in some way to engage? That's when we go into childhood trauma and childhood situations to see with the client, where they first saw that kind of behavior, where they first had someone give them all that attention and then switch into another person. Typically, it's a parent or someone in their family system, like a grandparent, sometimes even a sibling, where that's a familiar pattern of behavior that they fell back into in an adult environment. Okay. And then you have to go through that process of looking at the legitimate needs that you have or places of vulnerability that you can shore up for yourself, so that if you interact with a person like that again, they can't pull on you in the same way. They can't hook you the same way, because you're learning to take care of those needs for yourself as an adult. So that all of that is a part of the trauma recovery process, is being honest about what actually happened, taking any ownership yourself of anything you chose to do. And that doesn't mean from a shame or blame environment. It's just accountability for I decided to, or I made a decision to. And then going back to see, where did I first in my life, or have I ever interacted with something like this before? And what did it teach me? What lies did I come into agreement with when I was a child about myself that I need to step into the truth of, about who I am, what makes me me, where my value lies, and what is my capacity to take good care of myself? Those are the things I work with people over time. And I say in short order, I've had people say, I've been in therapy for 30 years, literally 30 years. And I've learned more from working with you in 12 months than I did the whole 30 years I was in therapy. Because we're not just treating symptoms. We're not just dealing with the current. We're looking at what are the roots of all of this, and what were the things that you came into agreement with that are not true about you or your capacity, that you need to come out of agreement with and stand in the truth of who you are and what your capacity really is in life today.
Well, looking back, because a lot of these things I'm kind of going through in my mind, I
Mhm.
realized that my father and my stepfather, that my mother must have been attracted to these types of people, because I look back and they were all really kind of a little bit of had narcissistic behavior.
Sure.
Now, question for you: if, for instance, like me right now,
Mhm.
I've moved and I'm living by myself, and
Mhm.
right now, all I want to do, Kimberly, is just not too much deal with anybody.
Yeah.
I'm seeking to kind of isolate myself to kind of go through what happened and
Mhm.
get to the other side. Is that healthy?
Yes, I call that a season of safety. Okay. When you go through these experiences and your nervous system has been so rattled, I mean, I really think about it like a rattle. There is a need for you to stabilize and ground. And it is very important for you to listen to the needs of your body and your nervous system for a period of time and carve out what I call a season of safety. In that season of safety, there are few people that you allow to have access to your nervous system, because you don't need to repeat any of that. You're vulnerable because you just came out of this situation. And there are some, you said you had some pillars of activity and patterns that you do, and you have to reestablish those patterns and those pillars apart from that person, or apart from your family system, or apart from your organization or job. You have to reconstitute life patterns and rhythms for yourself. And so I call that for clients a season of safety. And in it, you may get some creative ideas, and you may go after doing some things that you have been dormant, but that might not include like access and proximity of a whole bunch of people around you. You may be doing work and purposeful things in that season, but it's important. A lot of my clients have to deal with the impact to their nervous system, so they have to start really going to doctors, neurologists, nutritionists. They have to deal with how that relationship, depending on how long they were in it, impacted their health, impacted their brain, impacted their gut. All of this stuff is impacted because you've been in that cycle of abuse, dumping cortisol and adrenaline for long periods of time. And you brought up a great point, that that environment of not knowing when the shoe is going to drop or when the person is going to incite some kind of chaos puts your body in survival mode in a very damaging way. And the impact of that over time can be chronic illness, disease, and the hijacking of your normal nervous system responses. And so that season of just kind of wanting to be away from people helps you come down from that so that you can ground and stabilize. That's actually one of my stages for the women's community we have a whole season on stabilizing so that you can begin again to feel like yourself. It's almost like coming home to your body. And then evaluate, okay, what did I learn about relating to other people that I need to take into the next season with myself?
Well, that's good because the one thing is that you just want to get better and you never want to go through that whole process again. I mean, right now I have 5 people in my Napoleon Hill mastermind that I
Yeah.
deal with. And really, Kimberly, I'm so glad that you're telling me this because that's the only people that I want to deal with.
Yeah.
I really want to deal with anybody else.
Yeah.
And because I know that they're going to treat me nice and we're kind of all on the same path, right? So
Yeah.
I'm very glad that you're letting me know that at least I'm doing the right thing.
Yeah. Yeah. It's necessary. And it's kind of like, I liken it to a person who has an accident and they break a bone. You put a cast on that bone to allow it to heal over time. And you don't take that cast off until it's healed. I want you to think about your life needing to have a place to reset. That's what casts do. They reset and allow for the healing to take place without a whole bunch of movement or contact. It's the same thing for your nervous system when you go through recovering from any type of abusive situation, system, or relationship. So, that's one of the first things I start out with clients is talking about, okay, let's look at who needs to be a part of this season of safety, because it doesn't need to be a lot of people. And there may be places, things that you've enjoyed doing where there's a lot of like crowds and different things that for a season, you might need to pull back from to give your body again a chance to reset. So yeah, it's perfect. And you're actually, Jamie, listening to what your body needs and doing what it's telling you to do. So that's excellent.
Good. Because I know for me, I don't know, I'm going to the doctor next week. I'm getting blood tests and going to the doctor next week, but I was always so anxious. And
Yes.
I would do blood pressure medication and I would still be 160 over 90, just
Mm-hmm.
about the time that she was going to come home. Right. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I just couldn't even control my blood pressure at that time, even if I
Sure.
was doing blood pressure medication.
Sure.
And Kimberly, I want to ask you because this is a God question, right? All things are possible through God. But
Yes.
then when you read, it says narcissists cannot be healed from this.
Mm-hmm.
They're always going to be a narcissist. How does that kind of go with all things are possible with God? And then I guess the world, right, says that you can't heal this type of person. Because I want to believe that somebody can be healed from it and not just, because they're going through an emotion. I know that she was abused when she was a child, and it
Sure.
comes from that. But how do you not be able to heal somebody?
So that is an excellent question. I actually got my very first narcissist who is my client in the last couple of weeks. And this is what I'm learning. All things are possible with God when a person submits their will to him.
Mhm.
So the nature of that particular type of disorder, okay, and we can go into spiritual stuff where you're really talking about someone having made an agreement with darkness in the way that they are operating in their lives. That person is going to have to submit their will to God in order to be changed. And the nature of narcissism is me first. Nobody tells me what to do. I'm going to do what I want to do, no matter what impact it has on other people. So I am never going to say that narcissists cannot be healed. It is highly improbable for the majority of narcissists to surrender their lives to anyone, even God. And so that is the only circumstance in which I have been able to, kind of come to some kind of peace with the reality that the only person that can heal a narcissist is God himself. Satan was the quintessential narcissist. Quintessential. And what would he not do? He would not submit to God's deity and sovereignty. And most narcissists will not. So that's what I say. I say God is the only one. They can't take medication. They can't go through therapy. They can do those things. But that need to feed on people's energy, that torment that they have to release, because it's not just psychological, it's spiritual as well. They're going to have to release that somewhere, sometime. They can behavior modify for a period, and eventually it's going to come out.
Well, because what's odd is that this person watched The Chosen almost every day.
Mm-hmm.
And you would think that it would maybe heal her or go, change her, but it
Sure.
was almost like it was a cover up.
A check, yeah.
She could go to the church on Sunday and say, I watched The Chosen this and I watched The Chosen that, and when it came, I went to all of them within a week.
Yeah.
I guess it was really a way for her to hide, because the one thing I know at this minute is she has no desire to quit abusing people.
Right.
And
Exactly.
when 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 I was leaving, she said, I have another person coming in, and I almost wanted to reach out. Who is it? Because I want to tell them that this is not good, right? This is not going to be a good thing for them to be
Mm-hmm.
here with you.
Mm-hmm.
And
Well, what I want to come back to something you said a little while ago, where you said, because of the isolation, you left the situation, you didn't tell anyone, and you left the church.
right,
I think there are seasons for us to repair. Okay. And I also think that God will lead us at times to give a testimony of our experience in protection of other people. And I do that. I do that and have been doing that since I divorced. I do that, based on experiences I've had in my childhood. And there was a season of safety where I needed to just stabilize, take care of myself, focus on my own, body and health and all of that to recover, because I was diagnosed with a chronic illness through my divorce process. But I do think a big part of why this happens, especially in churches, is because people do not give a testimony. People do not confront it. People do not go back to people in authority and leaders and say, hey, this has been my experience, and I just want to make you aware of it. What you choose to do with it is what you choose to do with it. This is what I've done to protect myself, and I want to notify you in the church so that you can protect some people as well, because this is the impact it's had on me, and I would hate for that to continue to happen to other people in this environment and you all not know about it. I believe that's also a part of the healing process in God's timing, and in the timing that your nervous system can, be comfortable with that. But a big part of healing is telling the truth about yourself, about your own participation, and about what happened in that abuse dynamic. And I think that what we're seeing in the world right now is that being allowed, that God is literally pulling the covers back and allowing people who've been in positions of power, whether it be in systems, governments, churches, relationships, and exposing people who have been abusing people for decades. And it starts with typically one person talking, and then another person talks, and then another person talks. And after a while, you can see the predatory pattern of behavior. It didn't just happen to you. It's happened to many people that person has come into contact with. And that testimony is what helps people overcome those situations.
tell us a little bit about a narcissist family. their children? Do they love them? Do they not love them? How does that work out in your mind?
Well, that's a really great question. I'm going to do two parts. The first one is the narcissist family system that they came out of. Typically, they come out of having been parented by someone who has these same behavior patterns. So they learned it honest. They were taught to treat people this way, or they picked it up in what they saw between their parents. When they have their own children, they do the same thing to their children. And typically the system has a couple of depending on how many children they have, there's typically a golden child that gets all the attention. There's a scapegoat child who gets all of the golden child gets the positive attention. The scapegoat gets the negative attention. And those two kids are pitted against one another for the narcissist's approval. And so they're constantly competing with one another for affection, for attention, for support. And then there's typically another parent who is a kind of enabler that watches it all go down and tries to keep the kids safe by them being, a source of supply for the narcissist. But what they're really doing is enabling by continuing to stay there, enabling that narcissist to abuse their children as well. And so those dynamics from the childhood replicate in the adult family system that the narcissist has.
It's interesting you say that because her son, the golden child, she mentioned her daughter a few times, but in a year and a half, she never came to the house.
Right.
And I never really knew that she contacted her.
Right.
So, what you're saying is just like, that's exactly the way it was happening.
Yeah.
Let me see.
Mm-hmm. I think you asked the question, well, how do you spot this? And I want to answer that because I don't know if I got to the spotting. Like if you meet somebody, how do you spot a person who could have these kind of patterns before you really get to know them? I'm going to say, if you notice the person jokes, clowns, mocks other people, and they just, it's just a joke, but when you really think about it, it's a really mean thing that they're saying, or really humiliating thing that they're saying. That's a number one red flag for me, is watching someone kind of, especially mock other people. It could be television shows, characters. It's just the capacity to do that, joking, clowning, and humiliating. Another one would be them, again, being very fast moving in terms of getting close to you, that there being kind of an urgency to get really close to you quickly, and them asking you very personal questions to kind of get into your history, your wounds, your disappointments in life, because they're looking for what ways they can exploit those weaknesses in you. And they do it very early in the relationship. I remember I went out on a date with a guy and he said to me, oh, if you want to sit and like just have a conversation, we can just kind of like tell each other all the things that have really happened that have been really difficult and bad. And, I'd love to sit and just get to know more about you. This was like before our first date. He's trying to get into the most delicate, raw, vulnerable places in my heart. And you don't even know me. We haven't even been on a date yet. Not a big red flag, big red flag. And then also I would say, and this is a really important one, Jamie, it's you paying attention to your own nervous system in that person's presence. You ask the question, well, like, how can you pick it up? A lot of us, especially high achievers, are used to, kind of networking to try to create, contacts, relationships. And we're looking for, how can I, get connected to people so that as I'm growing this business or as I'm growing my, opportunities, programs, whatever, I'm finding out who's who in this room. What's more important to do when you go into a situation is pay attention how your body responds to a person's presence. And most of us don't pay attention to our bodies. Most of us don't pay attention to when we feel like something's wrong with, I don't know what it is about that person, but it's something about them that makes me feel uncomfortable. or when that person said that, there was something about that that just felt like almost like a little dagger that they were. When we pay attention to our bodies in the presence of other people, God made our bodies to have innate alert systems. And when we pay attention to our bodies and respond to them, we can pick up before anybody even speaks to us whether or not that person's safe for us. That's probably my number one thing. And most of the time, because of the abuse, one of the consequences of abuse is sometimes people numb. They disconnect from their bodies because what's happened has been so overwhelming that they haven't been able to pay attention to themselves. So a lot of what I do are somatic practical tools that help them start befriending their bodies again and paying attention to what sensations they have so that they can like see how much of a gift God put inside our bodies in picking up whether environments and people are safe or dangerous. We call it cues of safety or cues of danger. So those are the things I would say, are some telltale signs of things you should watch out for in an environment with a person.
Well, that's good because I'm screaming at the top of my lungs. The reason I'm having this particular segment, and I think it's one of the most important segments that we'll have,
Mhm.
is because once you get into it, Kimberly, it's hard to get out.
Yes.
Or unless you're in sometimes people just, oh, I just don't like her, and you just move on. But
Mhm.
when you get into that, because a lot of us, especially with childhood trauma, we have people pleasing tendencies. So now here we have someone that we can't seem to please as
Mhm.
readily as we do a lot of people.
Mhm.
So, for me, and it came in early in the relationship, is that all I wanted to do was just make her like me and make her not see me as this other person. And the one thing that kind of gets me is that I still would like her to like me, and so explain to us on a little bit on that because that really, I think I'm a little bit loopy when when I go into this thinking, at some point I wish I could still have her like me.
I understand, Jamie. I do. I think when I hear you say that, the question that comes up in my mind and heart is, do you like you?
Well, and that's the thing, Kimberly, that I'm working on, right?
Mhm.
Because and I said this in a couple of other maybe segments, but when I used to say love your neighbor as yourself, I would say to myself, well, I would like to love them more than that, right? More than
Mm,
I love me. I would rather love like somebody more than that. And
mhm.
those are the things I think that, so many times we get into, and what happened to me, especially even in this particular instance, is that I ended up doing a job that I didn't even like, that was really below me
Right.
because of all the study that I did. But it was, the one thing that was stressed is that on the first, right, rent has to be paid. That's the
Yeah.
most important thing. And if it was on the second, it was a traumatic experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I ended up waiting tables. I ended up doing things that I quit 15 years ago
Mhm.
just to make sure that on the first, or if I wasn't going to do the first, I get paid on the Wednesday. But
Mhm.
I let her know that this is what's happening. The money in the situation became so important, and then I got really irritated with myself because here
Mhm.
I am. I'd had two businesses that sold over $1 million, but for some reason in this particular minute, the most important thing was that I had cash flow coming in.
Sure.
I did things that I didn't really want to do. So
Sure.
I started not liking myself.
Yeah. 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 See, that's when we talk about going back to our childhoods. Underneath all of these experiences with narcissistic abusers is a legitimate need. It's a completely God born, God planted need. And the need for acceptance and belonging is a part of our humanity. Now, the world will tell you, Jamie, that your appearance plus performance, how well you can perform, how well you can bring that money on the first, is what's going to equal acceptance. And many of us from childhood get caught in that matrix of how do we look, how do we appear, how do we perform, how do we accomplish, and if I can just be good enough, then I'll be accepted and I'll have a place of belonging. And that's where God has had to meet me, Jamie. God has had to strip me over time from these experiences of looking to people to give me that sense of acceptance and belonging, and look to him to give me that sense of acceptance and belonging. And so when I ask the question to you, do you like you? Do you love you? It's kind of a loaded question, because for me, it's, have you received love and acceptance from God for yourself? When we receive that, we have it for ourselves. And then when someone comes to try to dangle that equation of you got to look a certain way and you got to perform a certain way or you're going to be, rejected, it doesn't carry the same weight, because we have experienced receiving it from God already for ourselves. And then we start taking care of ourselves in a way that displays that we love ourselves. And there is a contrast between that and other people coming to us to dangle carrots of acceptance and belonging. So that's when I ask that question. It's really not a question of whether you love you. The question is, have you received love for you? And that is what has helped me heal from narcissistic abuse. That's hooks that can no longer be put in me, that someone comes along. And when I say that, I mean this. I want to make sure I give this caveat. Because we grew up in those experiences and environment, it's kind of a weakness that's kind of in our nature, if that makes sense, to be pulled into trying to prove ourselves. But the more time that we receive love, take care of ourselves, and do our own inner work, the less that hook and that pull, the less strong it is to us over time. So your season of safety is really about that. It's about you spending time taking really good care of yourself, looking at the things you really desire, and reconnecting with your body so that you can experience what it's sensing in different environments, and receiving love from God for yourself. And when you go back out into situations, you get to carry that sense of, I already belong and I'm already accepted, out into experiences. So if someone comes and goes, well, if you don't do this, I'm not going to like you anymore, I'm going to reject you, you can go, okay, that's fine. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does. Because my mother had me when she was 15, my sister when she was 16. And so
Yes.
we kind of grew up together. But,
Mhm.
that sometimes my mom would just say, well, I think I like this person now. So she would leave and spend time away. We'd stay with our grandparents.
Yes.
And so abandonment issues and that type of thing were really part of growing up for me. And it's something I still deal with.
Sure. Sure.
But so trying to make people like me, kind of like I was trying to make my mom like me,
Mm.
was in my blood. But I'm
Sure.
just going to give God a glorifying praise at this minute, because
Mm.
I was actually getting this business going,
Mhm.
and it was August the 1st. I found someone that would invest in the business with me.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
was able to move out into a location where this would be if I said I want to live here in Palm Beach County, I would want to live in this area.
Mhm.
So it was a God-given moment that
Yeah.
I put SOS, save our son. Uh, he came and put me here in a great place, and now I'm growing, and I'm telling myself every morning, I love you, Jamie. I love you,
Yeah.
Jamie. And I'm
Yeah.
kind of going through that. But
Yes.
it is the sometimes the childhood that you have carries over, especially if you don't deal with it. Childhood trauma. I didn't even know I had childhood trauma until a
Yeah,
couple of years ago, so I really wasn't dealing with it. I was just reading motivational books,
sure.
but it is getting to that point where you are so correct. I know God loves me, and
Mm-hmm.
now I'm starting to love myself, and
Mm-hmm.
that's when love starts being the primary goal in your life,
Yes.
then that's when I feel life is going to change for the better.
Yes. 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 I
But
love that. Yeah.
so many times when I'm talking with people now, is they've experienced trauma, is that the moment they found a therapist or a coach that truly cared about them,
Yes.
that's when life changed. And
Yes.
so, Kimberly, that's why I want to have people to keep you in mind, right? As someone that's went through it, right? You can't take somebody where you haven't been before. So if you can have someone that, like yourself, that has dealt with it, now in a position to help people, then you're going to be in position to change yourself. So, Kimberly, let people know. We'll put it on the screen as well, but let them know how they can get a hold of you and talk about if you're the person that might be able to help them get to where they want to go.
Awesome. So my website is thenarcissisticabusecoach.com. They can also reach out to me on my Instagram, and it's Instagram at I am Kimberly Weeks. And I do a lot of content there just to kind of give people inspiration and hope and a little bit of information around the different dynamics of narcissistic abuse. But primarily, what I want to do is shine a light on how God is the one that can heal people from this. And I'm supporting them as they walk through that with them, really to discover who they are in Him. But to understand what they've been in and to ground themselves in reality, because a big part of this is this abuser pulling you into a fantasy world and you being disconnected from the truth. And the Bible says, "You shall know the truth, and the truth is what's going to set you free." So that's what I support people in doing, so that they can walk in the freedom that they have access to.
Well, we know that we're all here for a purpose,
Mhm.
and we know that it is a good purpose. And one thing people always, if the purpose is about you when you think it, it's not your real purpose, right?
Right,
Yeah, the
right.
purpose is going to be how do you help other people? And
Mhm.
I'm so happy that I got a chance to meet you and spread the word that you can help people get out of this situation that sometimes can be just overwhelming.
Yes.
Kimberly, thank you so much for giving us your knowledge, giving us your expertise, and also just in the way that you answer the questions to know that you really care. And God is with you trying to help people in this situation. So, again, thank you so much. And let people know how to get a hold of you, and we'll talk really soon.
Okay. Thank you so much, Jamie.
Thank you, Kimberly.